Hello and welcome to this GigaOm webinar, where we're here to talk about unlocking software-based innovation with value stream management. So lots of big words there. I kind of stumbled upon the term software-based innovation largely because no one really knows what DevOps means outside of the people that know what DevOps means. So software-based innovation at scale is a huge challenge for many organizations. They can innovate, but at a small scale, and then making it bigger is where the real problems start. So to understand how to unlock software-based innovation, how to actually scale your software efforts and move into a position where you can understand it, you can measure it, you've got visibility on it, and you can harness it, I'm here to speak to Nicole Bryan, who's Chief Product Officer at Tasktop. Now, Tasktop, of course, was founded as an organization around the concept of project to product. And Nicole, if you're Chief Product Officer, that makes you quite an important role in the whole structure, I would imagine. So, how did you arrive in this role, and what do you want people to get out of this webinar today?
Yeah. Well, I have a massive passion and always have had a massive passion to simply improve how software is developed and delivered. I started out as a developer. I won't reveal how many years ago it was, but it was a long time ago. And really, over the course of my career, realized more and more that where my true passion is helping organizations deliver better software. And in the years of working on Wall Street and in industry, and now at a software company, the recognition of the importance of people, no matter what organization you work for, thinking and acting with a product mindset is really core to the belief of what I believe and what Tasktop believes. And so I feel actually very lucky to have stumbled upon Tasktop and am enjoying the ride. Especially as getting to the second part of your question, what do I want people to get out of this? What I'm loving is this very recent, really significant uptake on value stream management and why it matters. And so I want to help people concretely walk away with why value stream management is a new discipline and why they should care about it and how it can help you.
And I'll let you into, that's great. I'll let you into a secret. When I started writing about DevOps 4 years ago, I also was a developer a long time ago, far too long to go into any detail on. And I was helping people with their ITIL implementations as well. So I had the ops side as well. And I've always wanted to help people make it work better, because there's so many things that used to go wrong and still go wrong and will continue to go wrong. So it's a great challenge. But when I learned that there was this thing called value stream management, it just seemed to capture a lot of the elements of what I was trying to help people with. So it was like, yes, I'll take that and run with it. So I'm delighted by that. I think we're speaking from that same hymn sheet.
It's exciting to be part of, you and I have both been at this for a while, and it's exciting to be part of something that really is new and revolutionary and can, I think, truly transform the industry.
I think, well, let's do exactly that, Nicole. Let's do exactly that, and let's work through this agenda to see how we can achieve that. So we're going to look at the challenges of scaling software, actually, I wouldn't normally do this in the middle of the agenda, but one of the things that struck me as we discussed putting this webinar together, I said to you, what is it that people really kind of still struggle with out there? And you said, so I'm going to give you the hook, and we haven't rehearsed this, but what you said was, roughly speaking, just how much pressure people were now on to deliver, where it was moving from, and it could be in these times as well, moving from a, sure, 6 months is okay, well, that's what you're saying, so that's what we'll get, to, no, we need it now, we need it yesterday, when can you do it, when can you do it? Huge pressure coming from enterprises today.
Huge pressure. I thought I was like, oh my God, do I have to remember something from weeks ago? I'm like, but yeah, the pressure is is immense. Imagine you're working at an automotive company today. We have a lot of customers in the automotive industry. And imagine the pressure that they now face. They've been in business for, upwards of 100 and more years, many of them. And they're now being challenged by a crazy car company that has been in business for less than 15 years. And if you look at the fintech, if you look at all the old, banks and Wall Street, they are being challenged by companies that have been in existence for 2, 3, 4 years. And so the pressure is truly astonishing. And also the lack of true deep understanding of how scaling software is way harder than it looks. So yeah, I think the pressure is crazily intense at this stage.
It is, and I think it's super hard to get your head around as well. So again and again, people underestimate how hard it's going to be in advance, and then find out to their chagrin just how difficult the complexity is. I was likening it to Sorcerer's Apprentice, where it's easy to make brooms, but then what happens when you can't control making the brooms? That's exactly how it felt to me as watching people and trying to help people get in control of their software development. So we're going to cover that. We're going to cover some of the challenges. Most importantly, we want to get to the infamous slide 14, which is the one where we put it all together and say this is how to get on top of visibility. This is how to look at your software development life cycle as flows, and here are the different aspects of that. So without further ado, we're going to run very quickly through the kind of the scene setting. Where are the challenges? First off, I just wanted to throw this picture out there because, as I said to you before, it's something I drew in a coffee shop, and I just was trying to get my head around what it is that people are trying to do today. And I thought, well, there's this aspect and that aspect, and all the aspects came together, and somehow I managed to get it all on one piece of paper. But then, as you can see on the right-hand side, for many enterprises, the in-house stuff that they've been building for decades is kind of squashed away, and somehow it's still got to be maintained and used and built. I mean, does that reflect the kinds of organizations you're working with, is kind of trying to reconcile all the change with these huge, complex, traditional stacks that people are still having to build to?
Absolutely. And it really, I love legacy. I think history is so important in the world, and the history of who you are makes you special. And yet it's very hard to deal with that history and legacy of technology that you've grown with as a large scale organization. And all of the big customers we have are dealing with that exact dilemma. And we try and help them see there's actually a lot of innovation within your legacy, and you have to embrace it, right? Embrace it and kind of go in with a big smile rather than with fear. And I think value stream management can help with that.
It reminds me actually a long time ago as well, when I was consulting with the British Library on software development. It started as a training course and it ended up as a consulting assignment, because I started the intro to the training course. I said, right, what do you want to learn? And or how do you, what big projects are you working on at the moment? And they said, well, we've got a bit of an issue because we're not allowed to build any new software. Everything has to be just maintaining existing legacy systems. So we're not quite sure why you're here, because but at the same time, we've got all these new things we're trying to do, but we can only maintain existing systems because that's all we've got budget to do. And so in the course of the training course, we kind of reinvented SOA in terms of working out how to map all the new requirements onto the existing services provided by the legacy systems. And it was a really, there were a few epiphanies along the way. It was a really mind-blowing week of training that then grew out of that. But yeah, I completely agree that there's so much power in legacy data and legacy applications, business logic, and so on. But as you know, part of the challenge, and we hear this again and again in so many different domains, is just understanding what you have, understanding what you're trying to do. The old adage of if you can't measure, you can't manage. That's a very simple thing to say, but equally, it's almost impossible to deliver on. I'm doing some work around GRC, governance, risk, and compliance at the moment, and people just don't know what they have. So when it comes to building new things, here's a data point which just proves the point in a different area, which was around customer experience. The big words I wanted to pick out of this research that we did last year was the term meaningful picture, and it struck me that creating a meaningful picture of anything is so hard with old stuff that you've already built, also with new stuff. And I'm just wondering, how does that manifest itself, Nicole, in terms of, I mean, does that result in frustration? Does that result in inertia? Does that result in just kind of, oh, well, never mind, we'll just carry on plugging away, hoping that we find out something along the way? What do your customers tell you?
Well, I had a boss many moons ago who said this phrase to me that I'll never forget, and that is, I think, such an important phrase, which is never let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And creating meaningful pictures of highly complex technical organizations, of which all of the big companies out there have, it's never going to be perfect. And the way that we try and help our customers see how to create that meaningful picture is really exactly what you're showing on the slide, which is start from the perspective of customer experience. And that is actually harder than you might think, especially given that a lot of the complex technical aspects of the meaningful picture you're trying to get to involve not black and white customers in terms of I sold widget X to person Y, but they're complex underpinnings of services that are used by other infrastructure pieces that are then put together to be used by oftentimes an internal customer, right? And so creating that meaningful picture is obviously extremely important from the customer perspective. And we just always help people to remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just get the big moving pieces and start chipping away and evolving over time.
I'm a big believer in the Pareto principle myself, which is how to, is possibly because I'm actually quite lazy, I don't know, but how to spend 20% of the effort to, or at least you can spend just 20% of the effort to get to 80% of the results. And in the fast-moving times we're in, that's often as much as you'd ever be able to get before the world's already changed. Yeah. And it's not just about, as we've seen, the complexity of systems, of getting a meaningful experience of CX. It's also about the complexity of the tools out there. And here's a data point that you brought. To build, there you go. So 42% of organizations use up to 10 collaboration tools for all these different areas. I mean, how does that manifest itself?
I think the biggest myth that people outside looking in just completely miss is that there's this myth that all software is somebody coding at their desk, right? And the reality is it's a massively complex creative endeavor that requires in number of disciplines. I mean, even John, when you and I started coding many moons ago, we keep using that word many moons ago, but there really were probably 2 or 3 primary roles involved in delivering software. Now there's upwards of 10 to 15 roles in delivering software. And so the scaling is not just the scaling of what you're trying to deliver, it's the scaling of bringing into the fold this multi-dimensional endeavor of delivering technology to your customers. So yeah, so getting your arms around the visibility when you have to pull information from, upwards of 4 to 10 tools, sometimes even more than that, just adds to the, the challenge of it. And that's really at the heart of what value stream management is trying to achieve, which is giving you that visibility over the end-to-end of the complex tool chain that you have in order for you to be able to measure what matters and improve what matters.
I blame Git, to be honest, or open source, or a combination of both. Back in the day, when you wanted a software tool, you kind of had to, you either just used the compiler chain and you had a bit of a user interface onto the whole thing, or you had to spend a lot of money on some big vendor. Whereas these days, if there's a problem, someone will have written some utility to solve it.
Yep.
Which is fantastic, and you've got all these options, but it just leaves so much complexity as well.
It does, and I think the other thing that people have to realize, and that people within our industry certainly do, is there's a lot of risk involved in building software. You're building software to make sure a car, is going to steer the right way. There's a tremendous amount of risk in that, and to kind of underappreciate the value of risk management when you're building software, and understanding compliance issues and understanding security issues, which are obviously at the forefront of many of our minds now, is it's underselling how hard it is to do this, right? And so you have to really consider, and value stream management ensures that you're actually considering all the aspects, risks, security, as well as features and defects in what you're delivering.
It's so fascinating, and I think that when it comes to scaling, for some reason I'm reminded of a story. No surprise there, I know, but when I started writing fiction, I took some advice from an ex-publisher, fantastic, super smart, and really kind of the kind of perfect person that you need, who if something's wrong, they'll just tell you. They'll just say, no, that's wrong. And so I said to her, I'm a bit worried that I can't write, and that my writing isn't going to be good enough to. And she said, John, there's no worry. You can write. You've written thousands of words, hundreds of thousands of words over the years. There's no problem at all with your writing. It's not your writing, it's everything else. And that really stuck me. And I think similarly, there's no problem with people's technical skills, with engineering, with the ability to innovate, with the super smartness, with the ability to navigate all kinds of complex APIs and libraries and put some super duper solution together in any domain. The issue is the everything else, that when it comes to shift left quality, security, trying to collaborate across much broader pools, bringing in governance, aspirational reality starts to diverge.
Well, I'll let you in on a secret. The biggest outcome that value stream management and that Tasktop's tools have helped organizations see, the most common result is that the organization, the bottleneck that they find when they analyze their value streams is not in developers. It's either in QA, or it's in business analysis, or it's in compliance or legal. And it's exactly what you said. It's the everything else matters tremendously.
And well, good segue to saying what's causing this, but also I think if I was to rewrite this slide, having got to the conversation at this point, is where can value stream management help? So it's, but I'll hand that to you as kind of where can value stream management help address this everything elseness? So
I think there is no shame in the fact that in order to focus, you have to be looking at one thing. Everyone complains about teams being siloed. I get that, but at some level, humans need to be able to focus. And if I'm a developer, I need to focus on my code, right? What value stream management does is allows teams to focus and individual disciplines to exist and allow that focus to happen, but to sit on, it essentially sits on top across all of those organizations and has a very prescriptive set of metrics that you can measure that across any of those different silos. And we call them the flow metrics. And I know that's slide 14, so I won't go there. Yeah. But that's basically what it does, is that you need something that kind of sits atop, on top of all those disciplines and allows you to see in, measure, and improve what those disciplines are, rather than trying to say, oh my goodness, you shouldn't, you shouldn't focus. You have to be able to do like, I'm sure you hear this all the time. Like the whole notion of the full stack developer kind of drives me nuts. It's like, really, how are you going to know everything when there's thousands of aspects to every dimension of code, right? And that's true across all of the disciplines. And so really, it's value stream management is accepting of the quote everything else, to continue with your story. It's accepting of the everything else and helping you improve the everything else as well.
Yeah, don't rub it in. I'm still smarting about that. It's still hurts. I think I'm going to give a pre-definition of value stream management at this point, because it's like kind of not come out of nowhere, but I know it's come out of lean engineering and so on and so forth. But this is, I'll put this out to you, Nicole, as a hypothesis of the why of value stream management, and you can correct me if you're wrong. But what I've seen is that essentially more and more effort has gone into doing the what. So we can develop it. It's very much how quickly can we get something out there, right? Okay, it's about features. It's about delivery. It's about it's about writing lines of code, and it's about responding to Jira tickets or whatever. And you get into this cadence, and the whole notion of CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous delivery, is to kind of speed up. You've got your scrums and your sprints, and you've got to do as much as you possibly can. But in putting all that speed around things, it's taken the level of what people are doing down to a kind of too low. So lots of individual things, lots of cars are moving around the motor, the routes, but no one's really got a kind of that top-down view onto the overall where's everyone going, and are we all going in the right direction kind of thing. And it's only now, like 10 years after DevOps was invented, that we're seeing this kind of governance wave of how can we level up, how can we start doing that top-down measurement and that top-down management. There you go, that's my take.
I wanted to get to disagree with you, but I can't, and I agree that that's what it's trying to do. And I think that we keep saying value stream management, but we need to focus on the first word within that, which is value, right? Your goal is to deliver value. And it can, it's the old adage of forest, and, can't see the forest for the trees, especially when there are so many moving parts. And so value stream management really is intended to help you see, understand, and improve value delivery.
And I'm very quickly going to respond to that. So interestingly, when I wrote this report, Strategy and Technical Considerations for Successful Enterprise DevOps, a couple of years ago, the word value does not appear, nor does the term value stream management, and that's because, but in the top right arrow, the three there, the assure process governance, augment decision making, and catalyze collaboration, that was all about how we can get on top of this stuff. And so no one was more delighted than I to see value stream management emerge as a discipline that was going to help across all of those areas. So maybe now's a good moment to sort of drill into what we see as value stream management. So we've got a report out at the moment around key criteria for value stream management. It's got this picture in it. It covers how value stream management is being adopted, So to everyone out there, please do read the report and see what it says. But essentially, and I'd love to know your take, Nicole, in terms of how this maps onto the reality of your customers. What we see is that it divides into two areas. The first is around efficiency, and that's kind of the first thing, which is that a lot of people have they've either got complex tool chains or they've got multiple simple tool chains, or they've got a combination of both. And there's a lot of bottlenecks that it's very hard to resolve because you can't actually see them. So getting on top of the efficiency of individual development pipelines, or all of your development pipelines, is the first area. And then secondly, how you can get on top and then actually start saying, is the software I'm delivering of value to the business, of value to my customers? Is it a cause of stress, a cause of risk, etc., etc.? So it's those two sides of the value stream coin. I'll shut up there and see how that maps onto your experience and what you're bringing to the party.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the efficiency and the effectiveness, or the what and the how, right? Because and one of the things that I think, so as you said, value stream management is really quite new, and it's super exciting. I think we're at the very beginning stages of really understanding what I believe is truly at the crux of what you want in value stream management, which is tying your product's value streams to business outcomes, which is really another way of saying effectiveness. But why am I developing, why am I developing this widget, and is it going to change my business? And tying the business outcomes, which, by the way, is actually pretty hard to do, is an area that I think value stream management is somewhat immature in, but I think it's going to be a critical piece of it. I know at Tasktop, we, from the get-go, our value stream management platform includes the ability to map your value stream efficiency to business outcomes. And so that's an area that I think is maybe, it's going to be interesting to see that one evolve and become more at the center of what value stream management is about. It's kind of like, the way I think of it is value stream management, if you think of end-to-end life cycle of software going all the way from ideate to create to release to operate, it sits on top of all of it. Kind of, is it more from the perspective of up and to the left or down and to the right? And I believe it's more from the perspective of up and to the left, which is really more the effectiveness and the business outcome side of the house.
And given the fact that I don't want to go too deeply into product here, but given the fact that you're essentially coming to your customers with something that responds to this very clear and present need, I mean, what's their response? Is it kind of well, of course I knew all of that, but it's nice to have a tool that kind of manages it a bit better than a spreadsheet, or is it oh, thank goodness gracious, finally I can get on top of this stuff, or is it somewhere in between?
Well, everybody realizes, because there's tons of fabulously experienced and highly intelligent people in this industry, and people aren't so shocked or overwhelmed by the concept or the ideas. It's how do we do it, because they have these complex tool chains, right? And they have a how. Give me the how. And Mick's book, Project to Product, outlines the flow framework, which is really the how. People are looking for a prescriptive way to say, how do I do it? And that's really what we allow people to do quickly and easily. And so it's people know they want it, they see the value in doing it, but they need help in the how.
So it just gives them that kind of dashboard. I mean, dashboard's an overused term in IT, obviously, a single pane of glass, etc., etc. But it's not just the dashboard. And you touched on the project product element of it. It's actually giving guidance within the dashboard that says, well, here's the important stuff, here's the less important stuff, etc.
Exactly, and doing so from the perspective from the actual digital footprint of what's really happening in your tools across your tool chain, not kind of a manual kind of consultative, come in and I'm going to analyze your processes. We're going to tell you by doing a lot of data analytics on the actual data in your tools, where your bottlenecks are. And so, yeah, that's the approach.
So I recognize that we're actually at slide 13, and so we're going to move on to the all-important slide 14 in just a second. But before we do, and I don't want to, I want to keep the cover on the table just for a second, because you've used the term flow, and I wondered if you might be able to just explain what you mean by flow before we go on to the different kinds of expansion of the term flow.
Yes, absolutely. When I use the term flow, what I'm meaning is the actual act of information from your artifacts that represent the software that you're trying to build. So features, defects, test cases, tasks, stories, capabilities. Oh my goodness, the list goes on and on. Flowing those artifacts and that information between tools that represent the processes, the flow of processes that you natively have in your organization. So what you want to be able to do is both create flow and measure flow. And that's, you know, that's the kind of secret sauce of what we do, is like we allow you to create the flow and measure the flow. So you can create seamless integrations between all of the tools that you have, so that your epics that originated in some planning tool get automatically sent over, flowed over to an Agile planning tool, automatically traced to the resulting test cases, et cetera, and then the measurement of that flow. So
flow is everything, and not just flow is everything. It's actually movement of either interim deliverables or final deliverables through the process. You care. Again, another hypothesis, you care less about the process, less about the activities, you care more about the movement of things, of artifacts through that, so that you end up with results.
Exactly, and that's super important that, you know, we have a lot of our customers use SAFe, and that is a type of process. What value stream management does is allow you to measure the flow within your SAFe implementation and your SAFe processes. But, you know, let's be honest, we all know some people are still doing waterfall. Value stream management can measure that flow as well. It does not matter what the process is. Value stream management is about measuring the flow of whatever the process is that you have, and allowing you to then find the bottlenecks in that process and improve it.
And there's an interesting kind of twist to that. Maybe this is obvious to you, but essentially, I may have just worked out something that's quite cool, which is that when we're I used to work in a project office, and essentially you're always thinking about deadlines and milestones and so on and so forth. And the deadlines and milestones served in order to be the release of something, the release of a report, the release of a software package or whatever. But it was always about the deadline or the milestone. And then you could shift the milestone. So you were milestone oriented. But what this is doing is it's thinking about the thing. So you don't care about the date. You care about where the thing is now available. And that's a much more powerful and kind of a real thing to get your head around, rather than some random date.
John, that is super spot on, incredibly spot on. I think of it more as like you're measuring the thing is the value, and it's actually participating in a network of events and a network of processes, and you want to have visibility into that the whole time and understand you know, where that thing, the value is slowing down, and when and how that thing actually gets to a customer.
Amazing. Well, I've got a genius idea. I'm going to call it the project and product thing, and I think I'll write a book about it. That's what do you reckon? Superb. But I'm going to move swiftly on. So lots of different words associated with flow. So when we've got this concept of flow, of actually shifting artifacts through whatever it is we're trying to do, in a waterfall way, in a agile way, in a safe way, whatever. talk me through this. There's a lot of words, but there's essentially 5 areas that that I might want to focus on in order to assess how well I'm managing my flows.
Exactly, and this is really the heart of the flow framework, and that is that you don't have to wonder what you should be measuring. The flow framework tells you what you should be measuring and does it in a language that both technical people can understand, but allows you to communicate with the business. Sometimes I talk about flow metrics as nothing more than a vehicle for conversation. I cannot tell you how many customer calls I've been on where they begin to talk about their flow metrics, and you literally feel like you've walked into kind of story time, you know, and sometimes, honestly, John, therapy time as well. And these flow metrics are that vehicle for these very interesting and intense conversations. So just quickly, flow velocity is, how many of these values are you able to deliver over time, right? And of course, you want to deliver more theoretically. The one of them that I find super interesting, flow efficiency, which is the second one on the screen. That one is how much wait time versus active time is there in the course of this network of flow that you have. And what's super fascinating is that organizations, as soon as they begin measuring efficiency, oftentimes what they find is that we turn on our value stream management platform, and their efficiency 80%, completely false, 100% false. And it's because they aren't even within their digital footprint having the right states and wait times being tracked, right? And so it ensues many conversations around flow efficiency, active versus wait time. Flow time, how long does it take to get it through? And by the way, I just want to state, because I know there's a lot of DevOpsy, CI/CD people probably listening, flow time is not from code commit to release. Flow time is from ideate to release, which is a whole nother topic we could get into. Flow load, another one that is super important, and almost every customer we work with finds out pretty quickly that their flow load is way too high. That's a pretty universal thing that we discover. And then flow distribution is what percentage of my capacity is going towards features versus defects versus risk versus debt. And what's interesting about flow distribution is most of our customers, what they find first is that they aren't even tracking debt and risk. They're not even tracking it, which is really mind-blowing, right? And unbelievably important. So you can probably tell from the tone of my voice, I could go on and on about all of the things around this forever. I'll stop there though, to see if
I got so many questions, and I'm trying to remember them all. This is where I wish I was writing notes. But when you're talking about flow load, and you said that's where you see so much, is that essentially people trying to do too much at the same time?
And you know what's interesting? I'll tell you one quick story. There's one organization we work with, and we do calculations of this. We can tell you based on your flow load how long it's going to be before you would complete what that load is, and oftentimes it is upwards of 7, 8, 9, 10 months of effort, which is insane. People can't grasp that. They're thrashing, and what ends up happening is that you end up delivering little small slices of tiny, I guess you could sort of say tiny bits of value, but they don't add up to the big thing that you're trying to accomplish. And it's because people are thrashing, right? So that's one of the, almost always we find that people's flow load is too high.
And the context, so a book I often recommend, speaking of books, to people is, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Eli Goldratt, who wrote The Goal.
No.
Which I recommend you read, Eli Goldratt's book, The Goal, which is written as a novel. I think the DevOps book novel form was taking a similar idea. But essentially what it boils down to is if you're trying to do 10 things in parallel and you switch from one to another and then back, you waste I'm just seeing the number on the screen here. 40% of your time is spent switching from one thing to another rather than doing the thing.
Yes. Yes. And there's some things that, teams don't feel empowered sometimes, which then gets to, we also measure team happiness, and teams don't feel empowered to say no when the business is asking for something. Like, no, we can't do that for you. We have to finish the work we're working on. So when I said sometimes these conversations we get into are almost like, I call one of our flow advisors, Carmen, our chief therapy officer, right? Because they come in and it's like, you as a team need to be able to say, no, I don't accept that. I cannot do that. And flow distribution plays into that as well. Teams find it super helpful to be able to say to their business counterparts, if I don't focus some of my effort on tech debt, I guarantee you my flow velocity is going to tank, and my flow time is going to go through the roof, and I'm never going to deliver that innovation that you're looking for. So you can see how all of these flow metrics are also interconnected, and really, as I said at the beginning, a vehicle for some very meaty conversations in organizations.
It's interesting. I've been doing some mentoring training recently, and it was group sessions, and the one thing that we couldn't, no one had a clear answer for, and we kept going around the way, was what's the difference between mentoring and counseling? And the answer is, well, they're very different, but it's certainly a Venn diagram. There's certainly an overlap. So it sounds very familiar what you're saying there about the chief therapy officer.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned that. I mean, maybe not everyone watching this webinar would have an understanding of what you mean by technical debt and what you mean by risk, and how you can actually use measurement of those things, and how you can free up that time, and not necessarily free up that time, but at least acknowledge the time and use it wisely. How does that work?
Yeah, so when a product value stream is defining their work, they should feel proud to articulate what the technical kind of infrastructure and underpinnings work that is. I don't want to get into a whole debate on the definition of tech debt, as you well know. That gets into a whole hoo-ha. But fundamentally acknowledging that there is ongoing kind of maintenance and keeping ships afloat around the technical side of things, that if you aren't, paying proper attention and care and feeding of that, it's absolutely going to affect your ability to deliver, features, the thing that you would like to be able to be delivering. And so we allow you to measure that, and that is probably one of the most empowering moments that a team has, is when they say to their organization, I need more more time on debt and prioritization of debt. And then there's the flip side where, there's only so much attention you should pay to debt in any one release cycle. When it comes to risk, that's a pretty new one in the industry, that people are realizing that fundamentally, if you aren't, the easy one to think about is security risk, but there's other types of risk. There's compliance risk, and that needs to be a first-class citizen. And so when I said earlier that the flow metrics really allow for a common language, this is part of what I mean, right? So features, defect, debt, and risk, that is something that can be understood by both the technical folks and the business folks. And so you're having those conversations about the four types of value that get delivered.
Brilliant. And just asking for a friend, would this be suitable for content management flows at all, if they are running less than 100% efficient? That's a joke. But yeah, you might have an opportunity to branch out into analyst firms. That's all I was thinking. Moving swiftly on. I think and what you can do is actually start to manage change within. Again, this isn't about your product, but it's one thing to understand where things are going well and where things are going badly, but there's an associated cost with making those improvements. So yes. Once you're on top of it, you can actually start treating those things as part of your cost base and benefits base.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, good. So that's fantastic. I think I'm checking time. We're perfectly on time, which is great. These are all great principles. We've got organizations that are struggling today to get on top of everything they're trying to do, and I think that flow load really captures it. It's like, yeah, we're trying to do more and more, and we're getting less and less efficient as a result. There's principles, there's concepts like value stream management that utterly right place, right time for those principles, and can completely independently recommend to anyone out there to embrace their adoption. Because I mean, interestingly, we've done a lot of work looking at organizations that provide tooling for value stream management. Not everyone calls it value stream management. That's absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned. If you're getting on top of visibility, if you're getting on top of efficiency, what matters is your ability to control what it is you're doing. And tools like Tasktop's own Viz product and so on can certainly help here. But then the question becomes, and if we move on to the final section of the presentation, how do we actually deliver on some of this? And I think that the first, I'm going to hand the baton back to you, Nicole, to just say what you feel are the kind of, when you go to an organization, you can't just kind of, everything you've said is that it engenders some huge conversations. There's some big aha moments that people can have as they're starting to embrace and adopt your technologies and value stream management. So how do you help them on those initial stages of the journey, and what tools, what capabilities do you offer, not just as Tasktop, but kind of how do those tools map onto those very early stages, or how do those capabilities map onto immediacy of results and benefits, would you say?
Yeah, well, one of the things
there we go.
One of the things that we spent a tremendous amount of time on is in the design of Viz, how can we get time to value to be almost instant, right? Because what you want is you want to see some successes, you want to see some, as your previous slides said, some starting points for success. And so we're actually very proud of the fact that time to value for your first flow metrics, which ironically is usually flow load, it can be in a day or 2 days, right? And so you're getting that, we allow you to capture data instantly. You literally turn the tool on, it's capturing data instantly. You can see flow load as soon as you've pointed it to a tool. And then what you do is you evolve the conversation. Now, some of the flow metrics, for obvious reasons, take more time, because to understand how long it takes to flow things through a system, you have to let things flow for a little while. But what you want to do is first capture the data instantly. Then, as on this slide, it says to abstract the data from the individual tools into your product value streams. And we call that modeling. And that's super important. It's incredibly powerful to be able to say, here's, the all of the bits and bobs at the low level, we kind of extract it and abstract it up to a level of the product value stream so that you're measuring in a way that is kind of understandable by humans, and allow you to see that through the perspective of a business lens. And those three capabilities combined allow you to literally get started instantly. And we always recommend for people to just go ahead and point it at your product value streams. You can model it, you can remodel it, you can iterate through it. It'll recalculate all your flow metrics. And that's where the conversations begin. And we urge people to not, kind of boil the ocean, but rather start small and grow from there. And it's not on this slide, but I think it's important for people to remember, you need to come with a mindset that you're moving to a product way of thinking, and part of that is having a flow practice. Come at it from the perspective we're going to constantly be analyzing, rethinking, re-looking at flow as it relates to how I'm delivering this core product over time. And so we tell organizations, and we actually help them create a flow practice. And then we move on to the diagnostics phase, where you're able to begin to see at a deeper level, kind of where your bottlenecks are and what the areas for improvement that would be most beneficial to start with.
I've got two questions I want to ask, and I'm going to conflate them into. Well, I'm just going to ask them both at the same time, and we'll see what happens. But one question is, what's the reaction? I mean, does it tend to be people going, "Brilliant! I can see how rubbish I am. Fantastic! Thank you so much." Or is there a kind of, what is there a psychological denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance?
Yeah.
At the stages that people work through? Well, I'll just ask that one.
Yeah, because John, what's super fascinating is that the 9 of 10 times the reaction is one of wide eyes. I thought that was the case. It's like people have intuition. People feel like they have the sense, but they don't feel empowered because they don't have data to back up their intuition. And so as soon as they see the data that backs what they thought, or sometimes people are actually quite surprised with what they see, but they have real concrete, accurate data to back it up, and they feel empowered. They feel like, now I can go talk to, we have literally stories of customers that took the flow metrics after having used it for only a month and got budget approval to hire, in this case, business analysts, because they showed that that's where the bottleneck was. Like, that is how concrete the benefits are. And so, of course, as is always the case, there's sometimes politics comes into play, and so people aren't happy with, they didn't want to have shown what was shown, but 9 of 10 times, it's actually invigorating and kind of freeing and empowering to the teams to have this powerful data to point out where and how to integrate change. It's pretty cool to watch people. It's one of my favorite parts is when we get to see customers have those aha moments. Very cool.
Okay, so question 2 then is, and it's something that came up in other discussions that we've had. There's a paper that we've written around value stream management and visibility and its importance, and the discussion came up there where I seem to remember you saying, look, this adoption of a product mindset, again, of flow-based mindset, it's not straightforward. It's not something that people just go, they're not going to look at the data and go, do you know what? What I need is to be thinking about it from a completely different perspective, and now I know I'm just going to do that. So what is there a kind of is there a kind of set of steps that you encourage, or is it one of just allowing it to happen over a period of time that they evolve into that mindset, or is it literally you have to start knocking heads together and sending people away to a outdoor camp for 6 weeks, or how does it work?
It's a little bit of both. It's what you want is to get them started with something quickly. That is always the case. And once you've got them, I guess there is a little bit of a mindset shift and a I guess I would say somewhat of a learning curve at some level. What I find fascinating is that all of our customers that we work with, they are hungry for it, right? So they see how quickly that you can kind of understand the interplay between, say, flow load and flow velocity, and they begin to speak in the language pretty darn quickly, and then they evolve. But of course, it is not something that you instantly look, and that's partly why we have consulting services that go along with our product to help people learn how to interpret these metrics.
And I just thought this was a good backdrop for you speaking there, but I'm going to jump very quickly past it to seven starting points for Nirvana, which we took from the paper I just mentioned, around essentially, and you've kind of, I'm not going to ask you to read this, but you've essentially highlighted the first one, which is really key, which is just start, and the second one, which is about getting people to have those conversations. And I'm just thinking through. Efficiency and effectiveness. We talked about that. Looking at it from a business perspective, we've talked about that. So I think 5, 6, 7 get interesting because they start to be more of the masterclass, which is how to stop doing things, how to get people to do less in order to proceed more, which goes right back to what we were talking about before with flow load. And then, so where do you see? I mean, is the journey always going to be, are you just getting people onto a journey which is never ending, but they're always going to be better off just by being on that journey? Or is there a kind of 2-year plan where, that they'll be better off and they'll be reoriented and life can just carry on? So I'm not saying they'd ever just switch value stream management off, but it would just become part of the psyche, or how over time.
Yeah, I mean, you're never going to stop doing value stream management, but you're going to get significant, maybe I'll call them quick hit benefits within, just a couple months, and then you're going to realize the longer term benefits, and that gets into 5 and 6, which is really understanding, should you address that massive legacy system that turns out is your bottleneck? That's a much longer part of the journey. But value stream management pretty quickly becomes sort of, I don't know, in your blood is how I would describe it. And it's like your trusty toolbox that you always have with you, that you don't want to not, that you realize pretty quickly you don't want to not have it with you. Your security blanket, I guess, is another way of thinking of it.
It's one of those strange things where when I don't know if this relates to your experience, but people that already do the right thing find it really hard to understand that people could be out there that don't do the right thing. Yeah. So I don't know if you've got customers that just kind of go, well, yeah, of course, we called it something different before, and now we call it value stream management, but it's just kind of, well, it's just measurement, isn't it? It's just visibility. But the other group that are really struggling to, I can almost see the workshop where it's, right, I get it. We need to measure, right?
Yes. We need to measure, but oh, thank God you didn't make me go figure out what to measure. We're telling you, value stream management tells you the flow metrics are what you need to be measuring, and that's this kind of like, stress release for customers, that it's not, and it's also not measure everything. It's measure those, the key flow metrics: flow load, flow velocity, flow time, flow efficiency, and flow distribution.
Perfect. Well, the only thing I wanted to highlight on this slide was the fact that process excellence is one element of digital excellence. So take that away, everybody. And another thing to take away is the fact that if people want to read more, here's a report around value stream management and flow metrics. Of course, there's our own report as well, which we mentioned, so there's plenty for people to learn from and take forward. And in the next few weeks, we'll be releasing our value stream management radar. So watch out for that. And maybe, Nicole, if we could leave people with a final thought that they can take away and could maybe start acting upon in their own organization. If they're going, yeah, I get it, I get the theory, I get the principle, and they're just looking for something that could hook them in. What would you recommend that they could kind of do maybe tomorrow that would start them facing in the right way or on this journey?
Start measuring, get those flow metrics going. You can get it going in a day.
Okay, so simple as that. Just if you're going to do it, then start doing it. And
start doing it. Yep.
And well, it remains for me to say thank you so much, Nicole, for an excellent webinar, and for being so insightful and bringing all these great stories from your customers. And If anyone's got any questions out there, you know where to find us. You can find us at gigaom.com, on Twitter and Facebook and all the usual places. If you do have any, if this does raise any questions, then please do get in touch with us, and we'll endeavour to respond. So thank you very much, Nicole.
Thank you, John. It was a fabulous conversation. I enjoyed it quite a bit.